101 ballet dancers. Today we're going to talk about pirouettes. So I know I mentioned that in Zoom classes last week, and some of you were surprised about learning about some pirouettes this quarter. And I would like to talk about some pirouettes and give you some kind of tips and tricks to help you with pirouettes. Now, just so you know, you practice and build up to pirouettes for a very long time. You're going to get kind of a crash course in pirouettes, so they're not probably going to be great the first time you do them. If some of you have done pirouettes before in gymnastics, they are done a bit differently, but you might have the strength and power to do it, so maybe you can get to those right away. So I'm going to teach it and show you in several phases and give you different recommendations and tips along the way that will help you with your pirouette. Now, pirouette means whirl is what it means, but in the ballet world, basically it's anytime you turn on one leg, and the most typical kind is the kind that goes up to passe. Your last week's assignment had that tombe pas de bourrée in it that ended with a balance in a passe at the end, and that's actually a great setup for a pirouette to get you prepared to pirouette from a fourth position. Now, pirouettes can come from other positions. They can come from fifth position, where they would go straight up into that pirouette and finish back into that fifth. They came from the fourth, like we just did across the floor. They can even come from a second position and up into that passe as well. So there's a bunch of different ways, but your most basic form, most likely you're gonna learn your first one is gonna be from fourth position. Now there's a few things I wanna demonstrate and talk about here first to get you ready to pirouette. One, make sure you're doing your bar work. Make sure you're doing that passe work where we've been balancing on the one leg, really practicing the idea of coming up through that coupe into the passe and then finishing back down the leg with that control. That builds the foot and ankle control that you need to have a successful pirouette. If your feet and ankles are weak, your pirouette is not going to be successful because you want to be able to have the power to get up there, to hold it, the power to maintain and come down gracefully without dropping out of that pirouette as well. You're going to notice in my pirouettes, my left ankle is much weaker than my right, and so it does affect the way that I control my landing on my pirouette. I'm working on it, but it's not getting there yet. So I'm going to demonstrate from the side view first. So when you're taking pirouettes in my class, my preference from a fourth position is from a fourth position lunge. We are going to work strictly on an outside pirouette or an en dehors outwards pirouette, which means if my right leg in front is in front, that's my standing leg, and I would turn away from that leg, not towards the leg, which means when I set up, I'll face you guys, you have an opposition arm to leg. Okay? So opposition arm to leg. So you're in this fourth position arm and a fourth position lunge here. I have straight leg and back. This is really beneficial for single, double, maybe even a triple pirouette on flat shoes. I only recommend doing the fourth position plie version if you're doing multiple turns, more than 3 if you need more power, probably 4+, or going from point shoes where you need more power to get up onto the ball of the foot, or not on the ball of the foot, to the point shoe. So if I'm here, weight is over the ball of the foot, I've already taken out one step, and that is pushing forward into that leg. If I'm in between both of my legs, I have to push forward and up, which usually results in something like this, falling forward. So I want to think about going up towards the ceiling. The first thing I want to practice here is I'm going to bring my arms into first. So if my right leg in front, my left arm is in front, it would actually open and close as I go into a pirouette. But for now, for a balance, we've been going to flat and then stretching that foot back out into forward. You also don't want to throw that part away, so you don't want to go and throw that down. You want to feel like you have a rubber band between your fingers and your foot of the gesture leg and stretch it back to that fourth. So you go to your passe, back to fourth, passe, back to fourth. And notice I get there right away. I'm not going, oh, I'm going to go to passe now, okay. I'm going to get to that passe. Because in a single pirouette, you're only there for a few minutes. So I would practice both sides. Try with that left leg in front. Passe, back to fourth. Finding that control. Get right over that standing leg and back to fourth. So think of your body going up to the ceiling and down, up to the ceiling, and down. Now, I can usually self-diagnose what's going on here, especially as I start to releve. If I'm falling forward, I've probably put too much energy going forward. So you want to think of going less forward, more up. If I'm falling to one side, probably need to go up towards the center. Falling to the other side, probably need to go up towards the center. If I'm falling backward, I didn't have enough power and I wasn't over the ball of my foot in the first place. So those are great ways to self-diagnose. Now I'm going to go releve. So I'm going to rise up on the ball of my foot. I want to think about a little tiny mini contraction in my belly button. So I'm going to pull in that belly button, but I'm going to breathe. I'm not going to pull in my belly button to hold my breath, but I'm going to do a little pull in, kind of like I'm zipping up some tight jeans that just came out of the dryer. And I still want to think of going straight up and then back down to the floor. Straight up and back down to the floor. Using that control in that foot, in that strength. So do a couple on each side. And I recommend doing this every day till the end of the quarter. So I'm going to give this as an assignment, like your bar work, that you practice the passe. Ooh, I can tell weak your leg. Passe and down. Passe and down. So that's how you want to practice first. Getting up to the passe on a flat foot, pulling in that belly button, get the weight over the ball of the foot. Practice going up onto the releve. Get all those arms getting into first. Then after that point, after doing that several times, you then can add a quarter turn, a half turn, and then eventually a full turn. When you add your turn, you need to make sure you use what's called the torque of the floor. You gotta use the pirouette physics. So practice a few times going, look at my feet and ankles. So I'm gonna push down to the floor and I right away spiral or torque into that floor. So if I'm going with my right leg in front to the left, my right leg is gonna push back and around on itself. Even my back leg has torque. It's gonna have less torque than the front leg because it has to get to passe, but I still torque it to get it off the floor. And notice both my heels are on the ground, so I don't wanna be up off that floor. So if I go to do my half turn, I'm gonna torque just enough that I can go half turn, and then I'd go back to fifth for this one, basically. So notice that torque. Again, practice going torque, torque. Notice my arm goes open, close, open, close. Find that torque, try the other leg. So I'm here, fourth position lunge, right arm's in front, left leg's my standing leg, which means I turn towards, away from that standing leg towards the right is what I meant to say. So I'm pushing out through the floor with those feet and ankles. If you don't do that, your upper body turns and you twist your ankle or your knee, which is not gonna be good. So push through that floor, find that torque, pull in that belly button. So if I get up there, passe and down, and make sure that foot turns with you underneath. That's usually one of the biggest notes I give dancers, is that knee gets torqued or that ankle gets torqued. So you also want to practice spotting. Now if I was doing a full turn, I'm not going to do a full turn yet, but a way to practice spotting is to stare at something. So I'm going to stare at you guys on the camera, and I'm going to turn my body just a little bit at a time. Stay staring, find it again. Stay staring, find it again. Stay staring, find it again, and try both directions. One way is usually better than the other. You want to spot for several reasons. So I'm going to spot and see if I can talk at the same time. So one of the reasons you spot is so you don't get dizzy. Now, many people still get dizzy, but it takes a lot of practice. I'm not as trained as I used to be, so I find myself I get dizzier as I get older. The other thing is to make your turn look sharp. Otherwise, it looks like your head is just kind of stuck when you're going around, and this gives you a sharp turn. The other reason to do it, if you're doing this type of turn that moves somewhere, you want to make sure, or it could be in place as well too, you want to end up where you want it to end up. So if I'm doing just a plain old pirouette here, and I'm facing you guys, I want to make sure I end up facing you again. If I'm not spotting, I could end up somewhere else. Or if I'm doing a turn that travels somewhere, I want to make sure if I want to end up over in that corner that I do. If you're on stage with a bunch of other dancers and nobody's spotting, there'll be lots of crashes if you're doing a turn that requires you to move. So here's how you're going to practice now. Next, after getting through all that, again, it's time consuming, it's tedious. If you guys were in like a dance school and practicing this, you would have done that first half probably for a couple of weeks. And then you would have moved on into this next one where you're going to do a quarter turn, and then you're going to move on to a half turn, and then you're going to move on to a full turn. I'm making one large video for you to practice over the last few weeks of classes. So I'm going to face my back to you. I'm going to start right foot front, and I'm going to tendu with my right foot. I'm going to carry it back to my fourth position lunge. My first turn is a quarter turn, so I'm going to snap up, and I'm going to end up facing this side of the room. So that's my downstage, that's my stage right. I'm going to go to passe, come down to fifth, I tendu, and I fourth. Now I'm going to face the camera, passe, come down to fifth. I go tendu, I go fourth. I'm going to face my stage left over there, passe, come down to fifth. I got one more, tendu to fourth. I go back to where I started and down. So you would practice that several times, seeing if you can get a nice balance. See if you can maintain that foot and ankle control. If you're not, stay with that. I'm going to try the left side. So see if this one's any stronger. It usually is. Tendu to fourth, passe, and down. And yeah, I can get higher over that leg. Tendu and fourth. I go to the camera down and tendu. I go towards those windows and down. One more, tendu. And notice my head goes to where I'm going to go next. So even in those quarter turns, my spot is going from here to there, to there. So I can make that a very clear quarter turn. Now the next version you would jump up to, again, don't go to it until you're ready. Also, as always, don't turn if you don't have a good space. You can always just practice the fourth to passe, balance, and back down, and you're going to get some really great benefits out of that until you can actually get a dance studio and try it. So this time, I start with my right leg. I'm going to go tendu, fourth. I want to end up facing the camera. Up and down. I'm going to move over. And tendu. And fourth, I'm going to face back to my front. Up and down. I'm going to do that again. One and fourth. Same leg every time. And down. And tendu. And fourth. And passe. And down. Then I switch sides. The left leg's going to do the same thing. So left leg, standing leg is my right leg. I'm doing my on dehors turn, tendu. Fourth, my left leg's going to come up. I'm going to go towards the camera. Up and down. And tendu. And fourth. And up. And down. Again. And fourth. And oh, I was going to go for a full turn. And down. And tendu. I'm not ready to do that yet. And not for you guys yet, anyway, just at that moment. So those are your half turns. Do that again until you're sick of it, until you feel the overloading of those muscles in your feet and ankles. Then give it a break, and then maybe move on to a full pirouette, which I'll show you now. So, helpful hands on a full pirouette. Keep that abdominal engaged, just as we talked about for the balance. The arms open and close, still in those opposition arms. Now the extra added image I give when I go up to my passe and go into my pirouette, so remember to torque the back foot as well as the front foot. That's going to give you power to get around. I've got a new little dance mat I'm dancing on because my floor was too slick and I was getting really nervous I was going to fall down. Now it's almost too sticky, but I feel more comfortable on this than I do on that floor. So I have to give more torque to the floor. So more power to the floor. It depends on your surface and what shoes you are wearing. So some floors and shoes are going to be really slick together, so you want to be extra careful. If you feel like they're too slick, practice balance on barefoot, because what you don't want to do is risk injury because the floor was not quite right for you to turn on. Now other floors might be sticky floor and sticky shoes, so they might be really sticky like this. So each floor you dance on is going to be different, and you're going to have to produce a different amount of power to get your pirouette to actually turn based on the floor that you have and what shoes you're dancing in and what floor you're dancing in. So those factors make a really big difference. So I'm going to give one little final image here, and that is of a corkscrew. So if you think about a corkscrew, when you look at it, to me it looks like it goes down into the floor and up into the ceiling. So that's me torquing the floor with my foot and my head spiraling up to the ceiling to make sure I get up into that nice balance of the pirouette. I'm going to finish in 4th position now instead of 5th, because the 5th was good for practice on quarter turns and half turns, but now for a full turn, I'm going to go tendu. I'm going to stretch to 4th. Now I have to remember to give the floor more torque because of my new sticky floor. I'm going to think corkscrew. I'm going to pull in my belly button. I'm going to spot that direction because that's my downstage. That's where I want to end up. I'm going to turn, turn, turn. When I'm about right here, I'm going to start to think about my foot reaching back to land back into the same position I started in for that the same position I started in for the pirouette, that is. If I wait with all that torque turn, if I wait too long here, and I'm still turning, my force is still turning, I'm going to start to bring my leg down and I'm going to end up another quarter turn around. Or I'm going to go, oh my gosh, I'm there, and I'm going to throw myself out of my pirouette. So you really only have to do a 3/4 turn for a full pirouette. So I'm going to go tendu, 4th, pirouette, 4th, and then I would close it in. And I'd probably change my foot, so I could do that a couple times. Tendu, 4th, pirouette. Oh, my foot is really sticky. I'm going to try again. And I jumped there because my foot was sticking too much to the floor. So I have to get used to my stickier floor. So I'm going to give a little more torque this time. 4th, pirouette. Oh, I still stuck 4th. And now let's try the other leg. That's my stronger leg. So I'm going to go pirouette. 4th, make sure you spot, make sure you spiral, pull in those abdominals. Pirouette. And 4th. Still sticky, but I got around a little better. Tendu. 4th. Pirouette. 4th. I'm so sticky that I stopped turning basically. I'm going to try one more there. And one more. And tendu. 4th. Pirouette. And 4th. Yeah, get stuck there. But you get the idea. Again, your floors are going to be different. I'm going to try one out. Ooh, yeah, that's too slick. I'm going to stay away from that. And this, yeah, that's too slick. Stay away from that too. There could be a big disaster. So, take this for the next 3 weeks. Practice this. You do not need to film yourself unless you're having issues and you have a question and you want me to answer that. Then, excuse me, you can send me a little video submission and say, something's happening, I'm not quite sure what it is, and then you can send that to me. So make sure you get to passe. Make sure you use the torque of the floor. Make sure your arms start in 4th, come into 1st. As you turn, make sure you spot. Make sure you think of a corkscrew. Make sure you're pulling those belly buttons as you go up and get as high as you can over the ball of the foot. The higher you can get up over your passe, the easier the balance is. So practice this the next 3 weeks. I'm going to do a new version of the center combo you did last week, and I'm going to add the pirouette to it so that you can also show me your pirouette practice. If it needs to be just a passe balance, make it that. That's okay. If you're ready to try the pirouette, go ahead and try the pirouette. All right, enjoy your pirouettes.